So, we've all gotten pretty used to chatbots, right? You ask a question, you get an answer. But what if we could go way beyond that? Today, we're going to dive into AI agents built with Claude. We're talking about systems that don't just talk. They think, they plan, and they actually do things to solve complex problems for you.
I want you to just chew on this question for a second. What if your AI could do more than just chat? I mean, really do things. Imagine telling an AI, hey, research the market trends for electric vehicles. And it doesn't just give you a few links. It goes out, gathers the data, analyzes it, and writes a whole report for you, all by itself. That right there is the promise of AI agents.
And this slide really nails the difference. On the left, you've got your standard chatbot. It's a straight line. You make a request, you get a response. End of story. But an AI agent? That's a whole different ballgame. It's a dynamic loop. You give it a goal and it starts working. It gathers info, it takes an action, then, and this is key, it checks its own work. And it just keeps repeating that cycle, getting smarter and closer to the goal with every pass.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But how does this all actually work under the hood? Let's pull out the blueprint and really break down what makes these agents tick.
Here's the official word from Anthropic, the folks who make Claude. An AI agent is a system where the AI model is basically the project manager. It's not just following a rigid, predefined script that a developer wrote. No, it's making its own decisions in real time about what to do next and which tools to use to get the job done. That autonomy is everything.
And this is that loop we were talking about, the agentic loop. First up, it gathers context. It asks itself, okay, what's going on right now? Then it takes an action, thinking, all right, what's the smartest next move? And then the really crucial part, it verifies its work. Did that actually help? Did it get me closer to my goal? And then it just does it all over again, learning and adapting with every single cycle.
But wait a minute, an AI model is just software, right? It lives in the cloud. It can't exactly click a mouse or use a keyboard, so how does it actually interact with the outside world? Well, we have to give it some powers, we have to give it tools.
And the magic that makes this happen is a feature called tool use. You might also hear it called function calling. They're pretty much the same idea. This is the core engine that lets Claude connect to and use external things, like an API or a database. And just a heads up, while a few models can do this, Anthropic recommends their heavy hitters, Sonnet or Opus, for the really complex agent tasks.
Now, check this out, because this is super, super important. When we define a tool for Claude, it's not just about the code. Look at that description field. That's the secret sauce. You're not just naming the tool, you're explaining to the AI in plain English what it does, when it should use it, and maybe even when it shouldn't use it. Think of it like you're writing the instruction manual for the AI.
So from a technical side, how does your app know when the AI needs help? It's all about this one little signal. When the API sends back a message and the stop reason is tool use, that's Claude tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, pause for a sec, I need you to go run this tool for me. It's that critical handoff from the AI's brain to a real-world action.
All right, the theory is cool, but let's get practical. When it's time to actually build one of these things, you've got a choice to make. There are basically two main paths you can go down.
Path number one is the do-it-yourself route. The hands-on approach. You literally build that agentic loop yourself, right there in your own code. This gives you complete, granular control over every single step. You are the puppet master, managing the whole conversation.
And this table kind of breaks down the trade-offs. Using the raw API, that's like building a custom car from scratch. You control every single nut and bolt, but yeah, it's more complex. The Claude Agent SDK, on the other hand, is like getting a high-end car kit. It simplifies a ton of the work and gets you up and running way faster, but with maybe a few less custom options.
So which way should you go? Well, Anthropic actually has some pretty clear advice here. They say to start simple. Get your hands dirty with the API directly first. Why? Because you'll learn the fundamental patterns. And honestly, a lot of the time you can solve your whole problem with just a little bit of code without needing a big, heavy framework.
Okay, so now we know how to build an agent. But, there's a big difference between just building an agent and building a great one. That takes a bit of craftsmanship, so let's talk about the rules for building well. All right, everybody lean in for a second, because if you take away only one thing from this entire explainer, I want it to be this. The number one single most important factor for how well your agent works is the quality of your tool descriptions. It's not the model, it's not the framework, it's how well you explain the tools to the AI, period.
And I mean, look at the difference here. It is night and day. On the left, get stock prices. What does that even mean? The AI has to guess. But on the right, a nice detailed description that explains what it does, what its limits are, what it returns. Now Claude has the clarity it needs to use that tool reliably every single time.
Let's talk about a few common traps people fall into. First, don't just jump into coding. Make your agent create a plan first. Second, don't just dump giant files into the context window. Keep it focused. And please, always have a step where the agent verifies its own work. And finally, remember what we just said. Start simple. Don't over-engineer things from the get-go.
Okay, here's a quick pro tip for building agents that are tough and don't just fall over. When you hit an error, like a rate limit, don't just retry immediately. Use a strategy called exponential backoff. It sounds fancy, but it just means you wait a little longer between each retry. 1 second, then 2, then 4. It's a much smarter way to handle errors and gives your agent a much better chance of succeeding.
You know, if you blink, you'll miss something big in this field. It's moving at an absolutely incredible speed. The workshop is constantly getting new, more powerful tools. So let's take a quick peek at the cutting edge.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's kind of insane, right? In what feels like the blink of an eye, we've gone from just basic tool use to agents that can actually use a computer's graphical interface, that can think through really tough problems, and they can even write and run their own code. The pace of progress is just wow.
So, as you get ready to start your own builder's journey, let's just recap the big takeaways. First, it's all about that agentic loop. Second, tool use is how your agent gets its power. Third, start simple with the API before you reach for bigger tools. And last but definitely not least, remember that writing clear, detailed tool descriptions is the most important job you have.
Which really brings us to the final and maybe most exciting thought. You now have the blueprint. You know how to build an AI that can do things. So the question isn't really how anymore. The real question I want to leave you with is what? What big, interesting, or maybe just really annoying problem are you going to solve first?